For someone whose entire career has been focused on joy, why a podcast on pain? Because these stories need to be told. A good phoenix rising out of the ashes story reminds us all that not only can we survive, we can thrive. And when we emerge, we're different. That's the alchemy of pain. Hi, everyone, and welcome to another edition of The Alchemy of Pain, a podcast that focuses on how painful experiences often change us as people. And I'm sort of flipping the script today because the pain we'll actually talk about was my own. But to know that there is an option out there for a different way of life. And maybe many of you out there watching and listening are in that same space of now what when it comes to alcohol. Now, many of you know my story, and I've had a on and off again relationship with alcohol for most of my adult life. I've gone long periods of time completely sober and happily. But when my beloved Mark passed away in 2021, my moderate drinking became problematic. I began to self-medicate with alcohol because the feelings were just too hard to feel. And maybe some of you can relate with that. You know, I never identified as alcoholic, but if I looked at my behavior and the way I was using alcohol, the way it was a crutch, it definitely was becoming a problem in my life. And in August of 2023, okay, we're in 2024 now. August of 2023, I just said enough. This is not serving me. I'm not my best self when I drink. And I don't reflect the person I really am at my core when I've been drinking. I say stupid things and I do stupid things, and I have a world of regrets afterward, not to mention a headache. So that is quite a big preamble to introducing you to my new friend, Jaime T, who you can follow on Instagram at Hype Girl Healing. And I was convinced that you probably had this dark rock bottom story to share, which ignited your purpose now in life. And it's really not the case, but it's an important conversation to have, which is why we're having it. Hello, Jaime.
Well, hello. It's so awesome to be here. Thank you so much for sharing your bit of your journey becoming alcohol free, because I think a lot of people can resonate with that. I certainly can. And it's an absolute pleasure to be joining you today.
I want to know, tell everybody how you serve in the world today. That's always my first question for everyone. And yours didn't come with a rock bottom experience.
No. For so many people, that is the case. I decided back in 2017 at the top of the new year that it was time to start enlisting some healthy habits. So, before I go into a bit of that, who I help and what I do in this world is I help women who are focused on their health and well being, who are really driven for that health and wellness lifestyle. I help you start changing your relationship with alcohol so that you can live your happiest, healthiest, most vibrant life possible without the wasted weekends, without the hangovers, and without alcohol's torment constantly picking at your back day in and day out.
Mm.
And my story did not include a rock bottom. My story did not include a ton of trauma. It was a desire to change my relationship with alcohol when Alcoholic Anonymous was pretty much the only option out there. And Sober Curious and this whole movement of this gray area drinking was really not being talked about, or it was just starting to be talked about, but it wasn't very popular. And I'm so excited to see the alcohol free movement that is taking place now, especially I feel like 2024, it's really amped up. And I couldn't be more excited to be a part of this community and a part of this space to help.
And I'm so glad that you are serving now, not serving alcohol, serving the world now, because
Mhm,
so many of us are like, oh, well, yay, there is something for me. There was this tipping point that did occur between 23 and 24. And
mm,
maybe it's a combination of, dry Januaries catching up
mhm,
with people and saying, hey, I feel better. I am a fan of the Huberman Lab podcast, and he has talked about how even one drink a week is toxic for your
mhm.
system, and many other thought leaders in the health and wellness field. The science supports it, but I want to unpack a few things that you said. The torment that follows.
Mhm.
Let's
So
unpack that a little.
So I think anybody that's listening that has a pretty regular drinking habit, regular, you come in from work and you have maybe one or two drinks at the end of the day, as we like to call wine o'clock. You like to enjoy maybe one or two beverages with your meal. You like to imbibe when you're out with friends. Nothing wrong with that. But as we've all probably experienced, what we coin in the industry, a hangxiety tends to follow in the early hour mornings when you're laying in bed trying to get that beautiful rest, and it just gets interrupted with panic and shame and anxiety and guilt and regret and fogginess, and you're trying to figure out and put some pieces together, and sometimes you can and sometimes you can't, and then you promise yourself you're going to drink less, or you're just going to cut back, or I'm not going to drink today. And then there's always this torment that happens when that 5 o'clock hour hits, or when that event hits, or when it's a stressful day or it's a celebration, because alcohol fills in all of the gaps. Alcohol is constantly tormenting us as a regular, normal, everyday drinker who consumes multiple times throughout the week. It's this constant torment of, should I have a drink? I can just have a drink, renegotiating these things that we put in place, making rules to break rules, to moderate, to not moderate, and just an exhausting cycle that ends up in this anxiety spiral early in the morning. Alcohol's torment is constantly there, whether you realize it or not, if you have or have not been taking a look at your drinking habit. So,
So well said. And then you use the phrase gray area drinking. What
mhm.
do you consider gray area drinking?
So it's a more common term, and I think if you think about drinking alcohol on a spectrum, so for many people who are trying to figure out their relationship with alcohol, you may or may not be able to relate with this. Like, do I have a problem with drinking? Maybe after a night of little too many cocktails, or you're not feeling your best and you're a little bit too hungover and embarrassed to admit how hungover you are. Do I have a problem with drinking? The automatic answer, no, I don't have a problem with drinking, because we think of it as black and white. I am the occasional drinker who can have one drink, or I'm the full blown drag out alcoholic on the other spectrum. And there's nowhere in between for somebody like me. So if I don't identify as an alcoholic, if I don't identify as a problem drinker, well, then I'm fine. And we get stuck in this area of grayness. And it is now becoming a coined term. Jolene Park, I believe, is the one who really kind of brought this phrase to light. Gray area drinking are millions of us who are stuck in the gray area of drinking. I don't identify as an alcoholic. I'm certainly not the one drink wonder, but there is something with my drinking habit that I feel needs to be looked at. But if I'm asking the question, do I have a problem with drinking? Well, no, I don't, because problem drinker for so many people equates to alcoholism, and that's not necessarily the case. There is a spectrum here of gray area drinking that millions of people are falling into and starting to identify. Well, I feel like I can enjoy drinks, but it's not the best relationship. So who am I, and how do I identify? Gray area drinking is the term that a lot of people are starting to resonate with.
Thank you for explaining that. And I do want to say, for anybody watching or listening, the purpose in doing this is not to demonize alcohol use or to make
Mhm,
you feel bad about anything that you're doing, because everybody, this is my credo. Everybody's journey is different.
mhm.
What's right for me may not be right for you, and that is fine. We can peacefully coexist. But I feel very strongly that when I come out and I do inspirational work, or I come out with a new book, or I'm putting content out there, I never want to portray that I'm somebody who's got it all together and has always had it together. I
Mhm.
am fraught with messes, which become my message. And I want to be fully open and transparent with my audience about my own personal struggles. And I will tell you that I have said goodbye to alcohol more than once in my life, but this
Oh,
is the final one. This is
mhm,
it. This is it. Stick a fork in me. I'm done with that, because in my soul, I felt like if I kept it up, I was going to die early.
mm,
And I'm not ready to go yet. I mean,
mm.
I may not have a choice in the matter, but anything that I can help to prolong
Sure.
this life that I want
Mhm,
to live. And for me personally, it's like I had to listen to my inner being saying, Brenda, it's over for you. You can't do it anymore. Now, why is it, Jamie, that so many of us, because when I broke up with alcohol the first time, I was in a very troubled marriage and considering leaving, and I knew I needed to be clear minded. And
mhm,
so I quit alcohol for a period of time. And I remember trying to talk to all of my girlfriends and saying, do you think I have a problem? Do you think I
mhm,
have a problem? And to a fault, they all said no, because of the same reason you just said. But
mhm,
there is such value in listening to your inner being, because that's what's really talking to you and trying to lead you into your own truth. At least that's the way I see it. How
mhm.
people connect with their inner being when it comes to this question of alcohol use.
Yeah, it's that inner compass that becomes extremely sharp and heightened once you stop drinking. And I would just like to also echo that there is nothing wrong with the path of going to AA. There is nothing wrong with consuming alcohol if it's not a problem for you or an issue for you, or as I like to say, it's causing more harm than good in your life. And there is all paths that get you to a final destination where you can have a happy and healthy life with or without alcohol. There is absolutely no shame. That does no good. We're already trying to fight that when we stop drinking. We're our own worst critic any dang way. So, with that being said, that inner compass, if you are finding yourself having that dialogue or that conversation with yourself, or with a trusted group of friends, there's something there. There's the pink elephant in the corner, and asking that question is always the wrong question to ask. There's a million and one questions to ask. That's the one not to ask, because nobody wants to admit that they have a problem. Because when you admit you have a problem, then you have to deal with it. And let's be honest, life is really overwhelming. Do you have time or energy to deal with another thing? Not really. So it's easier to say, no, I don't have a problem drinker. And again, we have this societal idea of what a problem drinker looks like. And the problem drinking or the unhealthy relationship with alcohol can look like a high achieving CEO who has too much stress on their shoulders and comes home and unwinds with what is societally acceptable, having a couple glasses of wine that turns into a bottle and then turns into a nightcap of a shot of bourbon, and then you're waking up hungover and you're stuck in this cycle. There is not a one size fits all for what an unhealthy relationship with alcohol looks like, what a problem drinker looks like. So when you're having these conversations, just as you said, trust it, know it. There's something there. It can be overwhelming, it can be scary to try to tackle it.
Mm.
So I'm sure we'll talk about this a little bit more, but this is the opportunity. And let me say it loud and clear that you do not have to do this on your own. There is an entire community and movement out there, starting with the dry Januaries to people like myself, who have created a path for people who do not have a desire to do it alone, don't know where to start, and know that it's a day by day thing. You take it one step at a time, and we can help you get to that place of making alcohol completely insignificant. I want you to live your best life, but I really want alcohol to be as insignificant in your life as that old rusty can of paint in the corner of your garage. It means absolutely nothing and holds absolutely no relevance, and you can live your best life with alcohol being around you, but It doesn't serve you anymore, and it does not affect your day to day.
Oh, making it insignificant. I
Mhm,
love that because for me, when I first stopped drinking, as my marriage was collapsing, showing up to that first party
mhm,
and choosing seltzer, I felt like there was this spotlight on me, and
mm,
everybody was going to be like, oh, Brenda's not drinking.
mhm,
Nobody cared. Nobody
mhm.
was looking at what was in my glass. No, and in fact, the only people that made a deal out of it were people that were probably feeling uncomfortable with their own drinking.
Sure.
So, wow, it was so freeing to realize, oh, nobody cares. And
Mhm,
then I remember having a conversation with someone, am I still fun?
mhm.
Because, fun and the swirl of the glass and the pretty glass and the Cosmo with the lime in it and the whole not. And someone said to me, Brenda, you bring the bubbles. You are the bubbles. You don't need the bubbles. And for me, that was such it's a mantra that I say to myself now. I'm
Mm.
bringing the bubbles.
Oh, I love that.
If it's BYOB, yeah, I'm bringing my own bubbles.
Mhm.
So let's talk about this movement and tackling sobriety, making alcohol insignificant. And I can only imagine in 2017 when you started this initiative, it was a whole different world than it is today.
Yes, I think we have to have the conversation about non-alcoholic beverages because all of those things that you said are the very key points that keep people stuck. Who am I going to be without a drink? How am I supposed to have fun? I have a fully booked social calendar. Like, I don't know how to be myself or to show up into events or just in my life without alcohol. It feels too overwhelming, it feels too big, and the truth of the matter is those are all common concerns and they're so easy, and I don't mean to simplify it because they're very real fears. I get it. We've all gone through it. But there's so many simple solutions to get you over the hump. And just like anything else, the more you start practicing it, the easier it becomes. So, this is where the conversation about non alcoholic beverages has to come in. When I started in 2017, we barely still had anything outside of like an O'Doul's as a non alcoholic option. You were stuck with your seltzer waters, your sodas, or your juices. And that was it. And I'm happy to say that here in 2024, we're talking about a like $10 billion business that is booming and growing. And when I tell you that there's so many fantastic things on the market, you walk into any liquor store now and you go into the non alcoholic department, you will be blown away with how many options there are out there. Pick your favorite cocktail, there is a mocktail for it. Pick your favorite liquor, there is most likely a substitute, if not your favorite brand, now making non alcoholic, low alcohol versions of it. And I want to give a shout out to Kim Crawford because Kim Crawford's Sauv Blanc was a favorite of mine. Kim Crawford is now making a low and zero alcohol Sauv Blanc, and I want to give them major props because that's just really important. They're taking the pulse, they're understanding that people want options. We don't just want to have soda water. And here's the
Mhm.
thing, you were talking about this ritual of pouring your drink into that fancy glass and swirling in that sip. You do not have to give that up. People think that they have to give up an entire life and an entire identity, and things are going to be so flat and boring. And it's anything but. You keep that wine glass, you keep that gurgle of the beverage going in there. You do your big swirl in your beautiful wine glass. You take that first sip at wine o'clock. It's not necessarily what matters that's in the glass as much as it is the ritual. You will be surprised as how much you will get the same dopamine hit at 5 o'clock when you have your beautiful wine glass with soda water or a non alcoholic beverage of choice or a smoothie or whatever beverage you want. The same dopamine hit will be released because it's the act, it's the ritual of continuing to drink a beautiful drink at that time of day, at the end of day, when your body knows it's time to calm down, wind down, let some stress out. The beverage is what I know. We just replace it We don't remove it. We're very much into replenishing and rejuvenating and not depriving and removing. That sets everyone up for failure. So it's a really key important piece. And also, if non-alcoholic drinks are not your thing, that's fine. There's so many what they're calling functional beverages out there with adaptogens and stress relieving plant botanicals in these drinks that are healthy and good for you that can go right in that fancy cocktail glass, just the same as your Cosmo or your martini or whatever it is that you drink at night, that will give you all of the health benefits that you're looking for without any of the shame, guilt, hangover spirals, any of it.
So there is a pool to dip your toe into now, whereas the
Mhm.
pool was very shallow and minimal many years ago. Interestingly, that it's become a multi-billion dollar market. So wherever the money is, there will be more options because people see a business opportunity. It feels like, and I know I'm not the first person to say this, the same as cigarette smoking was ubiquitous in
Mhm.
the 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s. I remember in the 80s, graduating college, I was in television in the control room doing editing, and we were all chain smoking
Mhm.
around the equipment, which it was horrible for the equipment, not to mention horrible for ourselves. And oh my goodness, you would never see that today.
Mhm.
You wouldn't see someone lighting up so easily today in an enclosed space. And again, no shame, no judgment. You do you. But the tide has turned.
It's very much a discussion that's happening. People are feeling like alcohol is becoming the new cigarette. People woke up and were realizing that like alcohol was, or I'm sorry, cigarette smoking was just wildly unhealthy. Why were we doing this? Well, it was socially acceptable. It's what you did. But nobody talked about all of the unhealthy things that went with smoking. What was healthy about smoking? It got you to socialize, it got you to connect with people, it, had these social elements to it, and
Yeah.
the same dialogue is now being placed on alcohol. They're even posting and sharing, scientific results that even these studies that said 1 glass of wine a night is healthy, and they're saying, "Actually, we're taking that back. Scientific studies show that no amount of alcohol is a healthy amount." Now listen, this is not to shame anybody. I don't like to talk too much about that because this is I work with people who are looking for a personal choice, who know that there's something there with that relationship with alcohol. So, by all means, if you are in your drinking habit and you have a healthy relationship with it or whatever, that's fine. But there is proof coming out now that there are a lot of unhealthy benefits when it comes to alcohol. And they do a really great job with marketing to make it seem sparkling and fun and all of these things. And the truth is coming out. And it's just not a healthy amount at all to be drinking.
I appreciate you saying that. I want to draw people's attention again to at Hype Girl Healing. The subtitle, your little phrase underneath your Instagram account says, helping wellness minded gals break free from the moderation madness with
Mm,
alcohol. That's an interesting choice of words, the moderation madness.
mhm. So it is again something that us gray area drinkers will identify with. We know there's something there with our drinking habit, but we don't identify as one side of the spectrum or the other. So we're somewhere in the middle. And what's our choice? Well, our choice is to cut back or moderate. And if I don't know how to cut back or moderate, it must be a me problem. Because
Mhm.
everybody else, when I'm looking around, they seem to be just fine in their drinking habit. We're constantly comparing. And like I touched upon earlier, it's the rule breaking, the rule making. I'm going to cut back. I'm not going to drink tonight. I'm not going to drink at home. I'm only going to have 2 drinks. I'm only going to do this. And we are just building all of these rules of moderating our drinking because we've asked the question that we now know is not the question to ask. Do I have a problem with drinking? No, I don't. I just have to, all I have to do is just like cut it off after 2 drinks. And then we can't cut it off after 2 drinks. Well, I'll just drink when I'm out and I won't drink at home. But then we have the bad night and we stop and we pick up the bottle of wine. This
Mm.
moderation insanity, as I like to phrase it, the moderation unmerry-go-round We think that's the solution, that we just don't have it quite figured out yet. But here, what I do at Hype Girl Healing, moderation is the entire and complete problem. Let's just take moderation off the board altogether. Let's break free from that insanity, that hamster wheel thinking that I just have to do one more rule and I'll figure it out, or I have to do this one thing and then I'll have it figured out. It's tiring, it's exhausting. Let's just take it off of the menu and let's explore other options. And that's what I do for Hype Girl Healing, because so many people who are looking to do more healthy habits with their life, they know that they need to tackle their drinking habit and they don't know how. So they try moderating, and they try moderating for years upon years upon years upon years. And they stay in isolation thinking it's a me problem. When in actuality, I just got to realize that there's another option out there besides trying to moderate, and there's help out there to help you get off of that hamster wheel and start living your most fabulous life with a drink in hand, having the best time of your life without hangovers, and reclaiming this life to live, because the rest of your days are about to be the best of your days.
So, when people follow Hype Girl Healing,
Mhm.
how do they connect with you? I see many inspiring posts. I bet you have a plethora of stories of people that follow you whose lives have changed dramatically. I don't want to uncover anyone's personal story, but can you give an example of someone whose life is incredibly better because they got off the hamster wheel?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I have an entire community of women who are just kicking butt and taking names. And I have quite a few who are coming up on 1 year. They kind of started their journeys together with me at the same time. And it's funny because I think, to touch upon when you quit, we were coming out of the pandemic. 2023 seemed to be the first normal year after 2020 through 2022, and things started to normalize and we were kind of getting back to this normal sense of life. 2023 was the year that people realized how much their drinking habit had revved up, more than they were comfortable with. And 2023 was the year that people started to say, okay, let's take a look at this. What can I do? So I think a lot of people started exploring their relationship in 2023. So these particular gals that I have, and I'll pick one in particular, it's kind of a very similar story. My whole life is completely and totally involved with alcohol. I live in wine country. Anything that you do is revolved around going out for wine tasting and vineyards. And this is what all of my friends do. And we do girls' brunches. And I just don't have an identity without it. And I feel like my life is going to end, without sounding dramatic, if I stop drinking. And there comes a point where you've had your day ones, you've had multiple day ones. I don't know anybody who decided on day one and stuck with day one and that was it. That's a rare breed. If that's you, I'd love to meet you, but that is not always the case. But something clicks finally when you don't give up on yourself. And this one woman in particular just decided it was time and got the help and the resources. And I cannot stress that enough. There is support out there. There's a lot of us doing this work because we realized there weren't many options out there when we decided to quit. And we want to give back and help people who resonate with our stories, who realize that, like, I'm not necessarily an alcoholic. I don't know that I necessarily need AA. What else is out there? There are tools and there are resources. And this gal just jumped in full force and said, I'm getting the support, I'm getting the help I need. And I'm happy to say that we are at day 320 for this person. I have it on the calendar that we're about to hit day 365. And it's showing up when you don't want to. It's showing up when it feels uncomfortable. It's asking the hard questions. It's leaning into the support. It's knowing that you're worth it. It's knowing that it's not an overnight success. And it's knowing that change is going to be really hard, but on the other side of change is the life that you never even thought possible. And I can tell
Mm.
you, every single person I've worked with, including myself, as somebody who has gone through this journey, never have I ever regretted not drinking. Not once, not ever. It is not an easy journey, but it is so worth it. And there is so much support and help out there. I'm here in the world to do that. That is my mission and my purpose. And I have to say, for those who are listening and thinking and their brains are percolating, never have I ever regretted not drinking. That has really driven it home for me and a lot of my clients. So just know that you're not alone and there's so much support out there.
So people can follow you and be inspired by the posts. I've been dipping my toe into threads and enjoying the discourse there. What else does Hype Girl Healing offer? I've seen meetups, virtual meetups, and also I was delighted to find out that you are in San Diego, which means I can come to one of your parties in the future, which is super exciting. What are some of the other things that you offer to support your community?
Sure. So I am full transparency. I believe that all of the information and education that I give should be available. So you can always check out my posts to get all of the information, but lots of freebies starting with a weekly meetup that happens every Wednesday at 8:30 a.m. Pacific. It's a free online meetup of all the newbie non-drinking gals to come together and just talk about all the things that we experience because those tentacles reach far and wide when you stop drinking, and they reach into every and all aspects of life in our everyday life. So we come together and just kind of share what's going on so that you have that support. I also have a free resource called the Social Scene Checklist. We talked about it here, that big fear of how do I go to my first event as a non drinker? I got you covered. I got a 20-point checklist. It's totally free to download that walks you through to get confident and feel well prepared for the event ahead. So there's no surprises. And guess what? You can let your hair down and have a really good time. And then I have coaching, one on one coaching, private coaching. I do online courses that opens a couple times a year for people who are looking for that step by step hand holding process of how the heck do I actually stop drinking? I really need to start at ground zero. And then I do different workshops that I host throughout the year. And I'm happy to announce that I'm going to be moving into San Diego to do some in real life events to start bringing the alcohol free fun to different wellness events. So you can certainly stay tuned for that. That will all be posted on Instagram and on my newsletter if you're a part of that as well. All of that information will be coming out.
It's what I'm so glad that I found you. And I'm
Hmm.
so appreciative of the work that you're doing in the world. As we close out, perhaps someone's listening and they're like, man, I've been struggling with this. And now this podcast comes my way and I feel the nudge. I feel the nudge. So, what would you say to that person that's on the precipice of making a decision in their own life when it comes to alcohol?
Lean into it. You can do things nervous, scared, and excited. Both things can exist at the same time. If you're feeling that nudge, you can just lean into it. Start looking at some of the content. Start listening to some of the podcasts out there. Start filling your mind with this concept of people who have gone before you and done it successfully. It gives you hope, it gives you inspiration, and it gives you direction. And we go step by step by step. And of course, if you ever need anything and want some more guidance, I am always open and available for people to reach out. Come to my DMs on Instagram. You can email me. My mission is to make sure that people don't feel stuck. There is just too much time wasted being stuck and overwhelmed. Have a conversation. Even if you don't know what to say, just say, "Hey, I heard you on the podcast. I'm feeling the nudge and I don't know what to do." We can walk you through it. We can get you through a step here just that feels comfortable. Just promise me that you'll listen to the nudge, that you'll lean into the nudge because there's something there. There's something very magical there. And as somebody who is over 7 years without alcohol, I promise you that that is the beginning of the rest of your life. I promise you that.
Powerful way to end. I want to thank you for the generosity of your work and your time today, Jaime T. What a pleasure to meet you. And to you, audience, I still sometimes get the nudge that makes me want to have that drink. And then I have to stop for a minute. Instead of react, I unpack it and say, what am I trying not to feel?
Mhm.
And then I give myself permission to feel whatever I'm feeling. And sometimes that involves tears. Sometimes I talk to myself or scream a little bit. But I have found that it is far better to feel than to numb myself.
Mm.
And so I want to encourage you as I end every podcast with my analogy about the butterfly in the chrysalis, and it's a dark place. And maybe you just tied one on and you are in that world of regret right now. What did I do? Or, oh no, I did that. Oh, I shouldn't have said that. Oh, now I have to do the apology tour. That's a dark place,
Mhm.
but keep pressing. Respond to your inner prompting and what it's trying to teach you and where it's trying to take you, and lean into it, like our new friend Jaime T just said. In that pressing against the chrysalis, you are building strength in your wings so you can fly, and we will be cheering you on. Thanks for tuning in and have a great day.